Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Okay, wow. Can't believe it's December already, right? Did this holiday season sneak up on anybody else, or was it just me? Because even though they started advertising before Halloween. Yeah, I really think so. It's amazing. So our title today is, O Thou from whom the breath of life comes. Wow, okay. I know, it does sound like, okay. And as I said, the holiday season is upon us. And, if you look around us outside, the whole world is embroiled in the holiday trappings. We've already got all the Christmas tree lots are up, and every place is decorated.
So the sun's not cooperating.
And there you go, the sun. It's lovely. So all of us, right? Oh, super moon tonight, yes. But we all might be involved in all of this. And but each week this month, we're going to turn inward. We're going to take a little time on Sunday mornings to turn inward and find rich and deep transformative meaning in one of the most well-known and oft-cited prayers in human history. This is the prayer that was taught by the man whose birth that we celebrate this month, Jesus the Christ. The prayer is known as the Lord's Prayer, and it's also known as the Our Father. I think if you were raised in the Catholic tradition, they call it Our Father. And of this prayer, Emmett Fox in the Sermon on the Mount wrote, "The Lord's Prayer was carefully constructed by Jesus with certain very clear ends in view. That is why of all of his teachings, it is by far the best known and the most often quoted. Undoubtedly, everyone who is seeking to follow along the way that Jesus led should make a point of using the Lord's Prayer and using it intelligently." And we in New Thought absolutely follow along the way that Jesus led. We often refer to him as the way shower. We believe that he came to show us by example, one, who we are, and two, how to work with the law of the universe. Of Jesus, Holmes wrote in The Science of Mind, "We do believe that in the unique personage of Jesus, the Christ was more fully orbed than in anyone whom we have record. We do believe that in the person of Jesus, more of God was manifest. We also believe that Christ comes alike to each and all. There is no one particular man predestined to become the Christ. We must understand that the Christ is not a person, but a principle. It was impossible for Jesus not to have become the Christ, as the human gave way to the divine, as the man gave way to God, as the flesh gave way to spirit, as the will of division gave way to the will of unity. Jesus the man became a living embodiment of the Christ. If we can look upon Jesus from this viewpoint, we shall be able to study his life as the living example." And so this man, this living example, this way shower, whose birth we celebrate this month, gave us a prayer, a really powerful prayer, and it is a prayer of transformation. Again, Emmett Fox on the Sermon on the Mount writes, "The great prayer is a compact formula for the development of the soul. It is designed with the utmost care for the specific purpose, so that those who use it with understanding will experience a real change of soul. The only progress that matters is the change of soul. The mere acquisition of fresh knowledge received intellectually makes no change in the soul. The Lord's Prayer is especially designed to bring this change about." So remember when we talked last Sunday about the four phases of spiritual knowledge? Does anybody remember? We talked a little bit about that. I know that was a whole week ago and we've slept since. Okay, well the last one that was the fourth one that we talked about was true spiritual knowledge. And that's what Emmett Fox is talking about here, is when you reach that point of true spiritual knowledge. Or I think we could also call it spiritual mastery. Okay? Where we are charged at our core to live, move, breathe, and have our being from a place of connection with and as Source. When we become the being, not just the doing or observing or practicing, we are actually the being, the it. Where it is just there, no one has to remind us, and we don't have to remind ourselves. We come from that place. We're not recognizing it as something outside of ourselves. We come from that place in spirituality. It's just there. It is who we are. This powerful ancient prayer that helps us get there has gone through many translations and interpretations, and we're going to explore 3 of them this month. The Aramaic language, like Greek, Hebrew, and Arabic, has layers and levels of meaning. The words are organized and defined by a poetic system where different meanings of every word are possible. So every line of the Lord's Prayer could be translated into English in several different ways. And truly, it has been. As an example of how it can be translated and how it can lose something, maybe a little something in the translation, I'm going to give you a few examples here and disclaimer, these are by children. Okay. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Or, Our Father who art in heaven, how did you know my name? Give us this day our jelly bread. Or, give us this steak and daily bread and forgive us our mattresses. Then there's, and forgive us our trash baskets as we forgive those who put trash in our baskets. Actually, it kind of means the same thing, doesn't it? And one child believed that the next line was, lead us not into temptation, and thought that he was praying for his little sister to get into trouble. I could see that with my grandchildren. And a little girl finished it with, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us some email. Amen. So as you see, there's many translations. But today we will look at a beautiful translation that begins with, O thou, from whom the breath of life comes. And before I share the rest of it with you in English, I want you to hear it as it's said in the first century Aramaic. And I have it right here. So this is a few minutes, but just feel this. Can you hear it okay? All there is. Isn't it beautiful? Just so moving. So here is the English translation. O thou, from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration, may your light be experienced in my utmost holiness. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe just as on earth. Give us wisdom for our daily need. Detach the fetters of faults that bind us, like we let go of the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, but let us be freed from that which keeps us off from our true purpose. From you comes the all-working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies all and renews itself from age to age, sealed in trust, faith, and truth. That's just beautiful. Wow. So Kahil Garan in the prophet said, what is prayer but the expansion of yourself into the living ether? Doesn't that translation do that beautifully? It expands us into the living ether. So this morning I want to do two things. First, focus on the first two verses with a bit of conversation, and then, grounded on that conversation, that you have an experience of your own with the rest of the prayer. Does that sound good? Everybody want to do that? All right, great. Well, let's go. All right. O thou, from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration, may your light be experienced in my utmost holiness. I don't know about you, but for me, those words just open me up to something pretty profound. Eric Butterworth once wrote, you may believe that there is a cosmic force that acts upon you, that guides you and heals you, but in the principle of unity, you are not simply the creation of God, molded and shaped and set out on a path of life. You are the force or presence of God expressing itself as you, and you have no existence outside of that force or presence. The purpose of all religion should be to help people find this cosmic awareness of unity with God. And there it is in the Master Teacher's words. May your light be experienced in my utmost holiness. Anybody heard of Greg Braden? Okay. At his Cell to Soul retreat in New Mexico, he began it by laying out a very provocative and thought-provoking statement. Okay, he said that the way we answer one question will inform everything in our lives. It will be the foundation of every decision about relationships, jobs, health, every choice we ever make. And it's a deceptively simple question, and yet it's deeply, deeply profound. It is one that humanity has been asking for millennia and seeking the answer to outside of themselves. Do you want to know what that question is? Does anybody know what it is? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Who am I? That is the question. Who am I? He then proceeded to address that question through scientific research that now says that we are not what we've been told. Now this is, I have to tell you, this when I was reading this, I thought, okay, this is something so new to me. I need to still process this, but I'm going to throw it out there for you, and you can process it too. I think a lot of times when we hear something for the first time, I'm imagining back in the time when they were saying the world was round instead of flat, there was a lot of resistance. There may be a little resistance to this too, because it's not what we have been told here. But we are so much more than we imagined. Science tells us, although, and this is the part that I went, really? Wow. Although it's not yet, and this is Greg Braden writing this, it's not yet being taught publicly, but Braden has the research to show it, that humanity did not evolve from struggle and strife over eons of time, evolving from amoeba in the water up to the Neanderthal. Rather, we arrived as we are today about 200,000 years ago, with everything intact as it is today. So here's how he unpacked this research, and this is not what I was taught in school at all. In 1987, Lucy, remember Lucy? She was discovered, She was a Neanderthal infant from which they were able to take DNA. The scientists thought they had found the first person from whom we had all evolved, and it was all very, very exciting until they saw the results of the DNA test. It showed something very profound and shocking. Her DNA was not the same as ours. It is now believed, but not yet being publicly taught or even discussed in the scientific world, that the Neanderthal, who did evolve from apes, and the human as we are today, which is called the anatomically modern human, walked on the earth at the same time. So let me say that again because it's kind of huge. It's now believed, but not yet publicly taught or even discussed in the scientific world, that the Neanderthal, who did evolve from apes, and the human as we are today, which is called the anatomically modern human, walked the earth at the same time. And that is what we are. We are the anatomically modern human, and we survived, and the Neanderthal did not. With this discovery, science, which has said we evolved from apes, and religion, which said that God created Adam, and which was an anatomically modern human, can now walk hand in hand. And what is it that Holmes says in The Science of Mind? One day we will prove that science and religion walk hand in hand. So this is, it's like, wow, this is amazing. We're a teaching that is totally open at the top. So I'm always open to looking at the new scientific discoveries. So our DNA, which is utterly unique to us, wires us to have deep intuition, empathy, precognition, compassion, self-healing abilities, wisdom, great resiliency, insights, and no other beings have this. No other beings have this. So who are you? Sounds like the Cheshire Cat. Who are you, right? You are God's light. I'm sorry, I have to bring Disney in every now and then. You are God's light. You are holy. You come from the breath of life that fills all. The first two lines of this most holy prayer are a call for us to remember that. O thou, from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration, may your light be experienced in my utmost holiness. They really, really, truly are the first two steps of our spiritual mind treatment affirmative prayer, aren't they? And as I often say, if we were to get really, really, really to the point where we embody and live from and breathe from and act from and vote from and decide from the first two steps of our affirmative prayer, which is recognizing that there is only one and recognizing that we are one, unifying, that we are totally one with Spirit, with God. If we would do that from those first two steps, then really we wouldn't need the other three steps. We wouldn't need the rest of it because everything would just fall into place. But until we are there, like Jesus was there, then we do what we can, and that's okay. That's why there is more to the Lord's Prayer. We teach a new thought all the time, that we are one of God, connected with all things, and that is the message of this morning. But my question is your connection that of a cobweb or of a cable? In your mind's eye, first picture cobwebs, maybe in a tree, on a plant, please not in my house, because I'm sure they're there, but just imagine a cobweb out there, right? Now, instead of cobwebs, imagine steel cables. Steel cables. If you have the idea of connection, of who you are, just in your head as an intellectual exercise, then your life will be held together by cobwebs. The slightest little offsetting experience will pull it apart. How many have been in where you are just in sync and traveling along, and boy, something happens and it's just all out the window just like that. We forget. You know, it's easy to remember when things are going well. It's when we're faced with a challenge that this is when we have to come from this teaching. I have a friend who called me last night and said that she was let go suddenly from her job of 7 years. Just like that. They came to her desk and said, here's your check. We don't need your services anymore. And she was shocked and asked me to do some prayer work for her for clarity. And we talked a little bit. And of course, I'm working with that. But in our conversation, she said, you know, I've been putting it out there that I was ready to retire, that I didn't want to work for this boss anymore, that I was ready for something different. And she says, I'm halfway between shock and relief. And it was just really interesting because she's already in that place just processing, and it's not a terrible tragedy that it could have appeared to be, but she's working through that. And so and those are the things that sometimes kind of blindside us a little bit. But if you live by the power of God, if you live from the realization that the breath of life breathed life into you and that you are a holy being of light, you will be fortified with a strength greater than steel cables. Wow. That is the prayer. That is what this prayer is inviting all of us to do, just in its first 2 lines. The rest of it takes us deeper into the experience of who we are in and as God. So let's go deeply into it as we make it personal for our lives here today and look at it as a steel cable of our connection. So if you choose, please close your eyes and allow yourself to just be with this prayer. O thou from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration, may your light be experienced in my utmost holiness. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe just as on earth. Give us wisdom for our daily need. Detach the fetters of faults that bind us, like we let go of the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, but let us be freed from that what keeps us off from our true purpose. From you comes the all-working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies all and renews itself from age to age, sealed in trust, faith, and truth. And so it is.